Welcome, everyone, to episode 9 of the Roots2Suits podcast, the podcast aimed at highlighting unique individuals that make up the global cannabis space. My name is Jameson Welbourn. As always, I'm joined by my brother and co-host, Graydon Welbourn. And today we have Todd from Rosin. Todd, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Todd.
Thank you.
So I actually got to talk with you a little bit for a very brief period on a previous show I did called the Fire's Fire Show. And we have known each other in the Canadian space for quite some time. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think what you've done with Rosin Heads and what you're going to be continuing to do is really incredible. And I think it lays a really cool roadmap to allow others who are passionate about cannabis to come into the space. But before we dive into all the cool work you're doing now, I want to take it back and learn a little bit more about you in the beginning. So Todd, can you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up?
Yeah, so I grew up outside of Toronto, a small town called Brooklyn. Lived there my whole life, still there now. Not very remarkable. High school, I had really, really bad social anxiety, found cannabis. Like, I couldn't function in society. You know, I dropped out of high school. Like, my life was a mess. I found cannabis. You know, it helped, but, you know, being 16 years old, how much cannabis can you really afford at that time, right? So, you know, I'd have periods of relief. You know, I could go to school for 3 days while I had that half quarter kind of thing, right? And so,
wow.
Like, life was really, really difficult for me back then. So I started growing when I was 16, right? I planted some seeds in my cornfield. I grew up on a farm. I planted some seeds in my cornfield. Ended up with some really nice weed. And, you know, that was the first year that, like, I had a really productive year because I grew enough cannabis to last me the year. So, you know, ever since then, that's been my whole thing. Every year I grow enough outdoors to last me. And you know, I've only ever in my life done one indoor crop because I'm a big fan of outdoor weed, right? If outdoor weed is grown properly and handled like indoor weed, you know, dried, trimmed, cured like indoor weed, to me, there's no difference, right? And I think a lot of us will say that sun-grown resin is actually better, right? So, you know, that saved my life, you know, learning how to grow cannabis. You know, from there, you know, I didn't have that much of an education, right? But I was really into computers back then. You know, when I was 16 years old, I was in a book for computer hacking. So, you know, I had a lot of computer knowledge. So I was able to actually translate that into an IT job, right? I worked in IT for 15 years. And this whole cannabis thing is simply the same, you know, like, again, I'm not well educated, but I've been able to turn the passion for the plant into, you know, first a pretty lucrative legacy.
Sorry, Todd, I'm gonna cut you off. What were you doing in IT? I used to work in tech as well.
Yeah, no. So, you know, I used to manage Active Directory domains, right? So I set up one of the first Microsoft, sorry, what the fuck was it again? One of the first Exchange server DAGs, which was a database accessibility group. So if your server went down, you had a backup database. You could transfer everything. I did some really cool stuff in IT, right? And again, it was the same sort of thing that cannabis. I was just super passionate about it, and it became an obsession. And anything that there's only been a few things in my life that have driven that kind of obsession, but anything that's driven that kind of obsession, you know, I've been pretty successful with it, right?
So I want to just rewind even a bit more and talk a little bit about your original experiences with cannabis, because if by 16 you've recognized that, hey, I'm dealing with certain issues, and that when I have cannabis, I can go to school, and when I don't have cannabis, I don't go to school. At what point were you introduced to cannabis? And was it like an immediate, profound effect, or was it something that you slowly warmed up to?
Yeah, no, it was. And I resisted cannabis for a very long time. When all my friends were into it much earlier than me, my first experience with cannabis was smoking hash BTs. And it was instantaneous, right? Because every day of my life, every minute of my life, somebody moves their head. Oh my God, are these people looking at me? What are they thinking about me? Like, the anxiety was that bad. Smoking those BTs, I'm talking to people. I'm thinking about the conversation I'm having, not this crazy stuff. I'm talking to people. So like it was pretty profound. I wouldn't say it was the first experience. I don't know that I really felt anything the first time, but the first time that I bought my own grandma hash, my first grandma hash, because I'm going to be honest with you, I think back in the days we used to smoke BTs, and we used to give people a lot of tobacco smoke so we could smoke more hash, right? So the first time I bought my own grandma hash, I remember getting off the school bus. Instead of getting off at my house, I got up at this park. I went and I smoked it. The experience was profound, right? And from there, it's just
what age was that?
What?
What age was that, Todd?
That was 16. That was 15, 16 years old.
So it was immediate for you. Like you started smoking, and then you grabbed your first grandma hash, and then you started growing cannabis. Like it was an immediate.
Yeah. Just because I couldn't afford it, right? So I had all the High Times magazines. Like I said, it was an obsession. So I had every issue of High Times. I had every issue of Cannabis Culture. What was it? Canada Cannabis, or Mark Emery's first magazine before it was Cannabis Culture, Cannabis Canada. I've got all the first issues that were printed on hemp paper, right? I still have those. I'm actually making some digital collages from them right now to go with some of the Rosin Heads branding, right? Just because I have been around for such a long time, so it's kind of cool to show some of that stuff that a lot of people haven't seen, right?
So you don't finish high school, but you get a job in IT. You're working in IT. At what point do you start getting involved in the traditional market?
So basically I got a job at a private equity company. All the owners there were entrepreneurs. There was 3 brothers. These guys have made a lot of money in their lifetime, very successful. I got close to 2 of the brothers, in different capacities. One of them smoked a lot of cannabis, so I was selling him a lot of cannabis while I was working there. The other one was giving me a lot of business advice, right? So I mostly got close to the one, but I did get to learn a lot from the second one. And the one that I did get really close with, he didn't finish high school either, right? So it was super inspiring to me. So everything kind of started there. I started my first edible company while I was working there. That company was called Shattered Sweets. That company came about, I had just met an MMAR grower. This is 2016. All the dispensaries are popping up in Toronto, right? So he gave me, a lot of his trim, a lot of his bottom buds, and I made a batch of hash for him. The yield was horrible. He wasn't too happy with what I had done. Long story short, I ended up buying, an open blast kit, a steel tube. I remember coming home on the GO train with cylinder of propane, butane, excuse me. So I started open blasting for him, and I had a lot of shatter back then, right? I was trying to sell it at the dispensaries. Wasn't having a lot of luck. So, I started my first edible company, Shattered Sweets. The reason that I decided to get into edibles is, when the dispensaries popped up, what was really exciting to me was the edibles, because I hadn't seen those before in my life. Growing up in the country, I didn't see a lot of that. And, seeing packaged edibles for the first time was pretty cool. But I was disappointed with everything I tried, right? They were either stale, just like inedible, like completely inedible, like food safety nightmares. You know what I mean? Like some really iffy stuff, right? And I remember talking to people and people being like, yo, that edible was amazing. And I'm like, are you like, it was bad. Like, let's be honest, it was bad. But I got so high, right? So to me, that stood out. We're accepting food products that taste horrible because they get us high. Are we not people? Do we not deserve proper food products and to get high off them? Right? So it was simple to me. I thought I could do better. And, if I'm being honest, some of my first products were probably, almost as bad, right? But I think maybe the branding was...
Did you have any culinary training, any background, anything at all?
Oh, well, see, I grew up in a house where my mom was always baking, right? And like not just baking, like so if you think of like Cake Boss, stuff like that, she was doing stuff like that, like with gingerbread houses, like in the 80s when I was a kid, right? Like they had lights. She would make stained glass windows out of candy.
No way.
There was moving mechanisms. She had a moving camera.
Did she do this for like work? Was this her career?
No, she made it for family, right? Like, so everybody in the family would get one every couple of years because they lasted a couple of years until the icing started going brown and everything, right? Like people would save them, bring them out at Christmas. One year she made an entire town, a fire hall, a church, multiple houses, like took up my whole house. Insane, right? So I grew up around that. And, I'm just trying to think of how to word this. So I grew up around that. When my mom passed away, like I got all her patterns and everything, right? And all the patterns that she made them like custom, like cardboard. She would draw them, cut them out like the templates. So, I have all these memories. So I knew that, I had the foundation for it, right? That's cool. With Shattered Sweets, I started doing a lot of stuff. Everybody was doing baked goods. Everybody was doing gummies. I was just kind of following what everybody else was doing. And then I made chocolate one day. And I was just like, I started realizing over time that I didn't enjoy making anything else, but the chocolate I was having fun with because, and I started out chocolate the hardest way. Instead of just trying to make a chocolate bar, the first thing I tried to make was a filled truffle, right? Like a filled chocolate, so I had to make the shells it was difficult at first, but what I loved about it was I could see the progression. You know what I mean? The first time I made them, the shells were super thick, like half an inch thick. I could only get a tiny bit of filling in. The shells were all uneven. Next time, the shells were a bit more uniform. There was 20 air bubbles the first time I did it, but the second time I did it, there was only 10 air bubbles. I could see the progression, right? And coming from IT, where everything you do is virtual, right? Like, how am I supposed to celebrate? Like, oh my God, I made that server run so fucking fast. Nobody cares, right? Nobody gives a shit, right? So, to me, there was no tangible, like, fine, I learned a new skill today. I learned how to do something cool, but like there was nothing tangible, nothing physical that I could see. With chocolate, I could see the progress. So from there, 6 months after starting that company, somebody approached me. They loved the branding. They wanted to take it to Nevada. Sure, take it. I signed a Mickey Mouse licensing agreement, one pager. Basically, they're going to take it to somebody. If they're able to get a co-manufacturer for it, I'll get a certain percentage. Cool. If not, within 3 years of them trying, they'll cut me X amount of dollars if they're not able to land it. Right. With that deal, though, there was no non-compete or anything because I was in Canada. They were taken to the States. So overnight, I rebranded as the Canna Chocolatier, and that's where that brand came from, right? And that brand was solely focused on chocolate. Like I said, I learned with Shattered Sweets. I wasn't a fan of making anything else. So this brand was solely chocolate. And I moved from Shatter to distillate, right? Distillate was becoming, the hot thing back then. No taste in your edibles, all that jazz, right?
I love that. That's such a cool story. It's cool that your roots with your mom tied into that. That's pretty special, I think.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. It connects a dot between IT and how artful you are today with rosin heads. Like
they're all very technical things. Like it's all about the details in IT. It's same thing with what you're doing with the chocolate. Makes a lot of sense.
So at what point, Todd, you're moving forward with the Canna Chocolatier. Are you enjoying the process of learning to do more complex things with chocolate? Like, is that how long were you involved in that before you started to look on to for your next challenge?
So it's funny, right? Because it seems like, a big span of time, passed during that, but Shattered Sweets was 2016, right? 6 months. I learned how to make chocolate, 6 months. Can of Chocolatier came about. I wasn't super, it's funny, right? Like everybody thought, I was so good at what I did, everything else, but like, I sucked at what I did back then. Okay. So I went and took a lot of my chocolate, was getting bloom on it, which is that white film, right? I was throwing, and when you're making truffles, you can't fix it, right? If it's solid chocolate, I can remelt it again, right? Save the distillate and remake it. With truffles, you can't fix it.
What is that white film?
So it's when the fat and the sugar separates. It means you didn't have the temperature properly.
So that's a bad thing. That's a sign of a not horrible. Good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. But the thing is, 90% of black market chocolate, probably even to this day, is bloomed, right?
That's what it's called, bloomed. That's what that means.
Yeah. So for the longest time, just because my chocolate didn't have bloom, that made me better than everybody else, right? But while I was,
and Todd, are you doing this all in your house? You just have a lab.
I was back then. So okay. When I was first experiencing that bloom, early 2017, I went and took a very, very basic chocolate making class, which was it was like a couples class where you bring a date. It was a 3-hour thing. They teach you how to make chocolate. That was really.
Did that in Toronto?
I did it at a place called McCall's. If anybody wants to go take it, there's an awesome teacher there, Kay Wong. Real fun. Bring your wife or your girlfriend. It'll be a lot of fun. I went by myself and everybody was looking at me like really weird, right? Like I was totally out of place.
You're there for research purposes. Yeah,
totally out of place. But I basically learned some very basic techniques from there. So Can of Chocolatier, I was doing a lot of experimentation with designs. Like if you look at the Can of Chocolatier Instagram, you'll see there's a lot of different techniques on there. And really what it was I was exploring techniques. I was learning how to do them. Once I got to a point where I thought I was good enough at it, I moved on, never did it again. And you'll see a big difference between Can of Chocolatier and Rosin heads. If you look at the Can of Chocolatier Instagram page, I was actually looking at it the other day, and I was kind of blown away with some of the aesthetics of the chocolate on that page. And I went back to the Rosin heads page and I started thinking to myself, like, I kind of stepped down a couple notches, but if you really look at it, you'll notice a lot of imperfections on what you saw on the Can of Chocolatier page, whereas on the Rosin heads page, it's pretty much perfection. You know what I mean? Like, I hate to say that word, but between Can of Chocolatier, so I don't know, Jameson, when you want to get into the whole, sale in the market, but that's kind of going to explain the transition.
Yeah, let's get into it right now. I want to lay it out like in chronological order.
So basically, 2017, cannabis is legalized. Edibles aren't legal yet. Nobody knows what the rules for edibles are going to be. Is chocolate going to be allowed? We don't know. For whatever reason, I thought I was good enough. I thought I had enough products in the portfolio. I thought my branding was good enough that I thought I'm going to start calling on LPs. Went to the Health Canada website, got the list of LPs. I think, there wasn't a whole lot at the time, right? So it wasn't a big project like it is right now. You'd find their website, you'd find what their domain is. I do some research. I'd find out who their CEO is on the internet. I find it out. I didn't know anybody's email addresses. I would take educated guesses based on my time in IT. First initial, last name, first name, period, last name, until I got an email through to the CEO. I did this, I don't know, probably 50 different companies. I got 27 different meetings. This is 2017. Edibles weren't legal. Nobody knew what the path was going to be. I got meetings from cold emails, right? Like, you want to talk about being persistent. You want to talk about figuring shit out, that's what I did. Almost everybody responded.
Cool.
Almost everybody responded. Took a long time to get to a point where I wasn't getting laughed out of those meetings.
What was your intention with the meeting at that point? Did you want to sell the company, or what did you want to do? Get a licensing agreement?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. And that was the biggest challenge. I didn't know. I knew I had something. I didn't know if I could sell it and walk away. I didn't know if I could get a licensing deal. I didn't know what the end goal was. I knew I wanted to talk to people. I knew I wanted to show them what I had, and I wanted to see where it would go. And it's funny, right? Because looking at it now, every single legal company that is doing filled chocolates in the Canadian space, I talked to, right? So, I gave a lot of people a lot of good ideas very early on. Maybe not the greatest idea, but again, I knew nothing about business at the time. I knew I had something. So, it took me a long time to get to a point where I wasn't getting laughed out of those meetings, right? But I finally got to a point.
And were you going to those meetings alone, Todd? Just you?
Just me and a whole bunch of chocolate. Right. I had a 4-page menu at the time. Nobody had anything like that. Nobody had any assets like that in the black market. You know what I mean? And it's funny, right? I thought I had a brand back then, right? I had a logo. I had a little bit of a story, and I had a sell sheet. That's not really a brand, but it was enough to get people interested. And I met with people for almost a year, right? Like I said, I got laughed at quite a bit.
Sorry, Todd, at this point, were you consistently selling? Like, were you moving a lot at the time?
Yeah, I couldn't keep it on the shelf, right? Like the brand was blowing up, right? Like everybody kind of knew who they were. I was doing all the markets. I was in all the right places.
And was this your full-time thing, or were you still working the IT for private equity?
I was working full-time. Working full-time.
Okay.
Everything I've done in chocolate, even now up to this day, even with rosin heads, it's side. I've always got a full-time gig, right? Like right now with rosin heads, I'm consulting for other LPs. I do 32 hours a week launching new products. So, this is always a side thing. So skipping ahead, I can't wait until it becomes something that I can do full time. Cause like, if you think I've made an impact with rosin heads now, wait until I can, focus on it. Right. So back to all the meetings and everything. Yeah. I finally got to a spot where I had 2 offers on the table. One was a licensing deal. And the other was some cash up front, a lot of stock, and a really high paying job. 2018, basically what happened the day that they announced that edibles were going to be illegal, and the day that they said chocolate would be allowed, I got a phone call from one of the 2 LPs I was talking to. It's a done deal. Cool. Drive out there. They gave me a check, right? And it was a pretty far drive from my house, so I ended up staying overnight. So I had a hotel room. Get the check, go back to my hotel, full-on panic attack, right? Like legit panic attack. Never seen a check like that before in my life. Didn't think I deserved it. Called my wife, like hyperventilating. I didn't catch the check for probably a month, right? Like, what if they want it back? Like pure imposter syndrome, right? Like, I taught myself how to make chocolate. I knew nothing about branding. I knew nothing about business, right? And an LP just gave me a check. Okay. I was freaking out. Okay. So what happened there, obviously, is with that deal, there was a non-compete. I can't make chocolate anymore. Okay. But I'm making chocolate full time for them, doing development. So for the first 6 months I was
This is the one where they gave you the job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So they gave me a check, they gave me a job. So basically the role that I had was, making chocolate, right? Chocolate product development. First 6 months, that's all I did all day, 8 hours a day. So I never went home and made chocolate. And basically they ended up shutting down their edible program, right? It wasn't just chocolate. They ended up shutting down their gummies and everything as well. Originally they put me in new product development. I came up with basically new product concepts, right? Find the white space. What are we going to launch?
And was it just you in that, like, what was the department like at that point?
It was myself, two food scientists who were working on gummies, another technician who was assigned to the gummy project. So it's funny, right? When I sold to the LP, right, and I didn't want to go here, but let's go there. I was sold like a fantasy, right? Going back to, food safety nightmares and everything, right? All of my recipes were made with cream, right? Meaning they had a very short shelf life, okay? Which was fine for what I was doing because the chocolates moved so fast, right? I wasn't too worried about it, but obviously for the legal market, it wasn't going to fly. This was very well known. It was written into the contract. The recipes, are as is, meaning they're not finished. They're going to have to help me finish them, to make them shelf stable. And, it was all in the contract, right? So I was told they're hiring a food scientist to help me stabilize all these recipes. And it's going to be me and a food scientist, and we're going to do all these amazing things. The food scientists that they hired were specific for the gummy project. Basically, there was a director of R&D at the time who, for whatever reason, didn't want to see, the project succeed. Straight up CPG person, coming from food, and was just appalled. Like did not like cannabis at all, hated cannabis consumers. And she was literally appalled that a public company had bought a black market company, and that they're risking everything to have me on staff, right? So I was never meant to succeed there, right? Anyways,
So was that, sorry, Todd, this is super interesting. So was that like was it mentally taxing to go to work and be in that environment every day when you're like wanting to do the thing you're passionate about, and then the scientist beside you is like,
of course it was, right? And coming from a space where everywhere I went, every market I did, every time I went to an event, all I heard was how great the chocolate was, and then going to work hearing how shit the chocolate was. Of course it was a trip, right? And I don't think I let it get to me too much. I eventually one of the chief innovation officer was smart enough to know what was going on. She knew that there was, there was personal problems more so than there was performance problems on my end. You know what I mean? So she ended up pulling me out of the edibles and put me in new product development. That's when I was finding all the white space, coming up with new cool concepts. From there, new product development, basically we had a whole bunch of big layoffs, right? So new product development, pretty much, I walked in one day, there was 2 meetings set up, 2 different boardrooms. If you were invited to one meeting, you got fired. If you were invited to the other meeting, you were safe. I was safe. So my entire team got decimated, right?
What year was this? Because there's been a lot of episodes of
this was 2019.
Okay.
Maybe 2018, 2019, I think. Yeah, 2019.
So this was in the first year that you got there.
Oh yeah.
So I've got
6 months. 6 months.
Yeah.
After 6 months I was there.
It's incredibly interesting because, and I guess it will lead into the exit, and this is the right time to talk about it. But I met Todd formally in a business setting at this time, and I was working with a group that I had a very unfriendly parting with and wasn't dealt with properly at all. But at that time I was selling genetics for a part of this group, and I met Todd, and I kind of could sense in the meeting like he wasn't fully like checked in to the meeting. And at the end of the meeting he was like, "Hey man, can I tell you something?" He's like, "I really like you." He's like, I'm not going to be the guy that you're going to be finishing this with, because I'm going to go start a high-end edible company." And I'm like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Right now." And like legalization 2.0 is just coming online. And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm going to do this."
2019 this meeting was?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause this would have been, no,
that's 2020.
2021 or
2021.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah,
so that's jumping ahead.
I apologize, Todd.
Yeah.
Please continue.
No.
Yeah. So,
well, let's get to that.
Yeah. So basically I moved around a few times there. Right.
So what sort of products, sorry, Todd, if you weren't doing the chocolate, what type of things were you working on?
So it's funny. The first thing they assigned me was building out a pre-roll 18-month roadmap. I've never worked in a business fucking setting like this before. I've never built out a product roadmap. Are you kidding me? Okay.
That's amazing.
Okay.
They told the chocolate guy to do the pre-roll rollout.
Okay, because I was a cannabis guy, right? Like they couldn't tolerate people like me, to be honest. You know what I mean? So
was there a lot of legacy guys at that time at the company?
No.
No.
So, I was the cannabis guy, right? So I got stuck with anything cannabis related, right? And I'm going to jump ahead here real quick, but like there was a time where I was assigned to figure out the right particle size for grinding pre-rolls, because I'm the only one in the fucking company and I don't smoke fucking pre-rolls, okay? I don't smoke pre-rolls, okay? Anyways, my first task there was build out the 18-month product roadmap. That's not true. That was the second iteration, new product development. My first iteration was basically everybody for a year had built product concepts, right? Crazy fucking ideas, vapes on necklaces, like out there shit, okay? My first task was to go there.
Okay, we need to pause for the vapes on necklaces.
No, this is good.
Oh my God.
Revolutionary, okay? It's revolutionary, okay? Let me just finish, okay? So basically my first task, and they had pages, like decks and decks and decks of these concepts, okay? My first task was to look at all the work that everybody had done for the last year and basically tell them how fucking stupid everything was. Basically poke holes in it and say, well, this doesn't make sense. Try to make sense out of stuff that non-cannabis people had been working on for a year. From there,
what were some of the other things that you saw in there?
And was that frustrating or fun?
It was hilarious because, if I'm being completely honest, right, I was rolling joints in the office. Like I was doing stuff that was like people were just fucking appalled at what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like I was a thug to these people, right? But like, it was fun to me because honestly, I was going there. I was sitting beside people, looking at their work, saying, yeah, that sucks. No, I like this. This can be better by doing that. Getting up, going to have a smoke, sitting with someone else, doing the same thing, and just doing that all day. There was no work involved. So, yeah, it was kind of fun, right?
These people must have loved you, just ripping up their ideas.
And it's so funny, though, right? Because I had some good relationships there at first, right? But some of the stuff that I was asked to do, and a lot of the praise that I was getting from, some of the higher ups was creating that friction, obviously. You know what I mean? I wasn't there trying to be an asshole to people, but like, you put a vape on a necklace in front of me, what do you want me to say?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, man. That you're in a tough position, but that would have been kind of fun to have being a member of the community and really understanding the culture, and then seeing people who have no connection to the culture try and design things. Like, I mean, it would be similar to me trying to design something for high-end wine consumers or high-end underwater hockey players. Like, I just, you know what I mean? I think it would be pretty laughable trying to see these people pull things out of thin air through the media that they've consumed.
That would just never happen in another industry, right?
Okay, let's just talk about how fun this job actually got, though, right? Like from there, another big layoff. And, I had a pretty high salary because of what I had negotiated when I sold the chocolate to them and everything, right? So they basically put me in the R&D team. So, my salary was in line with, all the scientists and whatnot. So they had to kind of hide my salary because I'm this uneducated guy who's making all this money, right? So that's when they, from there, they started like an NPD version 2 kind of thing, right? And that's when I got assigned the pre-roll roadmap. They were telling me I got to figure out the pre-roll particle size. And then category management came about, right? So category management, you're basically responsible for coming up with the products, how you're going to position the products in market, how you're going to price them. So you got to work very closely with marketing, have a vision, prove you can make money to the organization, all that stuff. So I eventually got assigned to be the pre-roll category manager, the extracts category manager, and the flower category manager, all at the same time. Okay, 95% of the company's revenue, right? I had to learn how to do so much stuff. I had to learn how to do all this analysis, right? Read all this data. Like, I had to learn so much stuff in such a short period of time. It was insane, right? But everything that I learned there is serving me so well now. You know what I mean?
And you got paid to learn that. It's great. Right?
So, I mean, I'm pretty good at picking stuff up, right? Like, I'm obviously not a dummy, but you know what I mean? Like, and then they started implementing like IBP, StageGate, all these processes. And the funniest part about it all is I was the first one who was on top of all the processes. I was teaching the processes to the rest of my team. The COGS files, right? Finance would build these templates for us, and we had to input, all the specific information for our products and stuff. I used to pick holes in those COGS files and find, where there was a problem here. This formula wasn't calculating properly. Like, because I could figure out the numbers because I've sold so much weed. I've done so much with weed back in the days that is no different, right? I'm just looking at numbers. I've got 3.5 grams of cannabis. I've got a jar that costs this. I've got this. Why is it this? I know there's 7 cents excise, but there's 15 cents I can't account for here, right? And we, it was crazy, right? And the mandate from the company at the time was we didn't necessarily have to be making money off the product right now, but we had to show a path to profitability. So, we'd get really creative in order to get products on market, right? And looking back now, it's hilarious because everything that we had in place that would make us profitable in the future fell apart before they ever realized that profit. So everything that launched at a negative margin is still at a negative margin to this day, right? Like bad business, right? Like hilarious shit, hilarious.
You must have seen the most incredible examples of misallocation of capital, like the amount of money that was raised by the company that you were at and the buffoonery of the management team writing books about how well they did and how great they are. And like it,
I noticed the waste. I noticed the fluff in the cannabis industry before I even sold the brand, right? They flew me out to Organogram. They flew me out to Moncton. Walking through their facility, graphics, floor to ceiling in the production corridors. All this fucking stupid shit. Great, you're giving me an awesome tour? But like, look at all the fucking money you wasted here, right? And that was before I even signed a deal, right? Getting to that company, obviously, you hit the nail on the head. It was bad. They built a new office space. Every single chair in that office was $1,000.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, at those times in the Canadian cannabis industry, the amount of money that was coming in was incredible, and you had people who had no connection to cannabis, building these giant teams where Todd was, not anywhere near the very top tier of decision makers, and that was their whole company's connection to cannabis knowledge. You know what I mean?
But let's not forget though. I was there, right? They gave me the director role, and I politely told them no, right? So
yes.
It took me 3 years, but category management is a pretty vital role in any CPG company, right? Like category management, marketing, then you're getting into the right. Like it's a pretty fucking heavy role. But from there,
but clearly your suggestions weren't being heard. Based on you know what I mean? Based on
was there still the friction with the scientists? Is that why?
Well, no. What it was is, so I would come up with a cool product idea, right? I would put it through all the process, stage gate, get it approved, get the commercialization team working on, okay, this is how we're making in production. This is how viable it's going to be from a cost perspective, do all that work. But then, when you get to the final stage, you've got everybody saying, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? Well, we do need to save 6 cents here. We do need to do this.
But
so,
Todd, you've proven before and after your experience with this group that you know how to produce a product that can make revenue in any market, period. And so you weren't able to execute on that same claim during your tenure at this market, at this company.
We got close. There was a few times, it almost worked, right? So yeah, it did get frustrating in a sense like that, but after a certain point, it's out of my hands, right? Once it gets to commercialization, I used to get my hands slapped.
And that was my point. That was my only point.
Yeah, no, for sure. We almost got there, and I honestly, I was happy with some of the products we launched. Like I did some cool shit, you know what I mean? But it could have been cooler, right? And that's why you don't see me talk about it. You never see me post anything about those companies, right? I've worked for multiple different LPs. You never see me post anything. I think if you dig deep on LinkedIn, you might find one post about one product I launched with that company. And that post did get 16,000 likes or 16,000 views on LinkedIn. So, I think it was a pretty cool product, and that was the exception. That's why I did post it. But so yeah, basically, a lot of that happened. Another round of layoffs. A new product development team is about to be stood up. Okay, they want to move me from category management to product development now. Okay, and the thing is, they were building like more of a CPG category management team, LCBO, Pepsi. They wanted those types of people in there. I thought that category management was working well, and I thought it was good for the rest of the category managers to have access to me. But they wanted more of a CPG focus, rigid category management. So, they're like, Todd, we want you to, we want you to be on this new product development team. And I'm like, listen, you moved me enough. I spent a lot of time learning all the processes here, learning what a category manager is, learning how to do the job. You could ask anybody in the organization. I'm doing really good at this position. I'm not willing to move at this point in time. Okay, cool, no problem. A couple months go by. Todd, we want you to move into product development. We kind of want you to head up that team, like not lead it, but be the lead. No, thank you. Finally, they decide to move me to that team anyways, right? But with that move, in order to appease me, they're like, we're going to give you a director role. We're going to give you a role, director of cannabis and technology. So what that means is you're basically in charge of, telling us what good cannabis is and, staying up to date on the latest processing methods, growing methods, and, just being our cannabis guy. I knew that I was getting tired of the position. Like I was working hard, you know what I mean? Like there was a time where I couldn't find more time in the day. Like if you need more time in the day, you wake up earlier, you go to bed later. I couldn't do it anymore. I have a family, like I couldn't do it. I was working a lot. So they offered me the director role and I thought about it for, a brief period of time. Told my wife was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not taking it. She's like, what do you mean? I said, so because of the non-compete that I had, I was making mushroom chocolates. I couldn't make cannabis chocolates, but I got into mushroom chocolates. I was doing okay with it. And one of my customers asked me if I wanted to make rosin chocolates. I was making Buddha head chocolates at the time. I looked at the chocolate. I looked at him. I said, yeah, rosin heads. Let's go. A couple months later, I got offered the director role, turned it down. From there, they offered me every role in the company pretty much. They said, name your job, name your price, tell us what you want to do. We'll pay you whatever you want. Then they said, if you want to build your own team, you can lead your own department, whatever you want to do, Todd. I basically said to them, and I'll never forget this, 'cause this is probably one of the boldest statements I've ever said in my life. But, very clearly I said to them, I don't work for money. I work based on my passions. I've lost my passion for this organization. There's no amount of money that you can pay me to keep me here. I had to get that forceful. I had to get to that point because every single president, vice president in the company had offered me a role in their department, right? Departments I have no business being in. You know what I mean? Like everybody just wanted me to stay. So once I made that statement,
why was that, Todd?
Everybody out.
Why was that? Do you know where all the bodies are buried? Are you the most what?
No, really what it was is the job was half done. I sold them a chocolate company. I knew they weren't going to launch it. I knew I wanted to get into chocolate again. And, what I did while I was there was I spent the 3 years that I was there learning how to get really good at making chocolate, taking courses with the top chocolatiers in the world, developing recipes, shelf-stable recipes, 18-month shelf life. Working very, very hard under the radar because I wasn't allowed to make chocolate while I was there. I knew it was time. Basically, there's a Kevin O'Leary quote, a salary is a drug they give you to let your dreams die. They offered me the director role. That quote went through my head. Just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to wonder.
You told me.
I'm going to wonder.
Yeah.
Did they give you a raise for that? Were they offering a raise?
Of course.
Yeah.
But like, I was going to wonder for the rest of my life, what if, right? And, the mushroom brand that I was doing at the time really took off. I knew how good I had gotten with the Canada Chocolatier, like, with being able to reach consumers. And the mushroom brand kind of took off really well. So I was very confident that I could do the same with, this idea that came about in a parking lot, this Buddha head chocolate that we're now calling Rosin head. I knew I could make something of it, and I knew I could make something of it real quick. So I did.
And we must have chatted like right around that time because you kind of came when we talked. You said, "Listen, man, I'm not going to be here when you wrap this up. Like they've offered me a directorship at this company, and I'm leaving." And I was like, and like the walls were crumbling around legacy and traditional markets as 2.0 is going to get about to be turned on. And I was like, wow, like I remember admiring you because you were so absolutely sure of what you were going to do. And then you just went and did it. So I think that was something really cool that I got to witness because I witnessed you at that time and you were, I will be a testament to say you were absolutely sure that this was the decision and there wasn't any uncertainty when I was speaking to you.
So was this 2021 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it really goes back to Canada Chocolatier days. Right. I told you guys really bad anxiety, right? Like that persisted up till 2017. I was smoking a lot of cannabis, that's how I learned everything about cannabis. I was looking at cannabis every day. I was growing cannabis every day. I was reading about cannabis every day, right? So it's just funny how it became my job. And, I was able to excel at a job just based on a problem in my life that I had to solve. But, having this focus and having this vision, it goes back to 2017. This is going to be a funny story. I tell this story all the time. So I just got my first professional chocolate photo shoot done, right? And I say professional, but basically I gave chocolates to a friend who took them home to his wife, who is a really good photographer. Basically, it was the pyramid chocolates I was making at the time for Canada Chocolatier, and she took some really cool pictures, like with the sky in the background, beach, all these really cool photos. I ended up doing DMT, like the same week that I got the photos back. I saw my chocolate. I saw these pyramid chocolates like in ancient Egypt. Like I saw them medieval times, like chocolate all over the world. All I saw was chocolate. Okay. Like all I, as time goes on, you lose a lot of what the messages you actually received were on the DMT. But basically, I knew from that day forward that chocolate was my path forward. Like, I just knew it. You know what I mean? So 6 years later, I still have that vision where, I'm able to. And this goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning, Jameson. Like, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing different than me. There's nothing that I've done that anybody else couldn't do.
But you're driven. You're a leg lifter. Like,
I'm not though. I'm
not.
And
you had a vision.
I'm not. I'm just too stupid to give up. Like,
That's
maybe not, but
that's
maybe not. But you don't. You only fail when you give up, right? So one way or another, I've always, since 2017, I've known this is going to happen, right? So here we are, 2022. It's finally just about to happen, right? I could have gave up. That big company bought my brand. Okay, I could have stayed there for the rest of my life, made a 6-figure salary and just, done nothing. You know what I mean? And got paid a lot of money for it.
And for your decision, I will respect the shit out of you for the rest of your life, and so will the rest of the community. And more people need to hear this. But I think that it speaks to the person you are, and I've met you, I've felt the fiber of your fabric, like I know what you're about, and so I think that. Sorry, go ahead.
There's two things here, right? Like, there's only two things that have kept this going. One goes back to what I originally said. We're not second-class citizens being cannabis consumers. Now that I actually know how to make chocolate, like now that I'm actually really good at it, and I put myself up against professional chocolatiers any day of the week, I know that cannabis consumers deserve that. And that's been my driving factor from day one. Okay. And I think the only thing that's going to set me apart in the legal market is I've approached it. How can I make the best chocolate? Where every other LP's approached it, how can I make the most amount of money by putting 10 milligrams of THC in a chocolate? Okay. I'm looking at it like, I'm going to give you the same chocolate I've been making in the legacy market. The legacy market, it's been very profitable because I can put 100 milligrams in a piece. Okay. I can make that money. Legal market's very different. I'm playing with 10 milligrams. Okay. It's not super profitable for me. I can tell you that. Right? I could use cheaper ingredients. I could make shit, but that's not my brand. That's not me. Right? So that's going to be the difference. I can find efficiencies along the way. I can find efficiencies over time that are going to make this, a very profitable business. But right now, I'm like, I want consumers to have what they deserve. I'll figure it out later on the back end how I'm going to, how it's going to be worth it. But so that's been the driving factor, is remembering my friends tolerating shit food products that could make them sick because it got them high. Okay? We deserve better than that. The other thing that kept me going is just that. Honestly, I think they're better. I think if anybody deserves this place at the table, it should be me, as well as everybody else who's been putting in the work as much as I have, right?
Absolutely. I want to talk about how you got traction so quickly in the market. Like, you, to me, really.
Wait, we should talk about the exit first.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what was the exit like? And
the exit was basically made that statement, made that bold statement, not going to work. I only work for passion, not for money. You can't pay me enough. The exit was fine. But before I did exit, and it's funny, right? So there's just certain things I can and cannot say. I'm just thinking about what I can say here. Basically, sure. I left, I potentially had something already set up for transitioning a company into the legal market. Okay. But before I left, I had that opportunity that I was talking about. But, I couldn't really do too much with it because I was still at Hexo, still had the non-compete. But, there was some talk, right? But beyond that, I also had some hours at another LP for consulting. So I wasn't walking away and, broke, right? I was walking away. I still had, some money coming in, right? So I made the exit. I ended up working at an LP for 2 weeks. They were paying me consulting. And something else came about 2 weeks later that just paid like a lot more. So I ended up taking that. But and the deal that I was working on, it fell apart. So now I'm consulting. And this is when Rosin Heads first starts taking off in the legacy market. The funny thing about Rosin Heads is I've probably sold a lot less chocolate than people think that I have, right? Like it's gone to the right people at the right time.
Sold it too. Yeah, it's who.
It was never targeted like that. It's just for whatever reason.
Can you talk a bit more about the significance of that? Because I think that's a really interesting point. Like, it matters who you're selling it to and why.
So I can speak to it as an observer because I follow culture closely, is that Todd offered something that a lot of the visible members and participating members of the community want, which is ultra premium. And there was nobody offering ultra premium chocolate with an ultra premium extract put together in an ultra premium experience in an ultra premium box. And so I actually thought until right this moment that Todd got those boxes to the individuals that chose to post about them purposefully. But if he in fact didn't do that, then what happened was he created a product that was so attractive to the tastemakers in the community who share openly on social media that those tastemakers went into their pockets, pulled out their money, gave it to Todd, got the box, and the box was so nice and the experience was so good that they posted about it and created a story. And then the whole community went, oh, not only are these ultra premium, but they must be so many available because all of a sudden all these people that were watching have them. And I think
so. It was more than a product; it was like an experience because you cared about the packaging.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was a beautiful box. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it was the baller boxes. Like the boxes is really what blew the brand up, right? Nobody was doing really nice chocolate like that. Nobody was doing 24 pieces.
Sorry, what were the boxes like? I haven't seen them.
So they're basically just 24-piece boxes.
Okay.
But like, yeah, super nice labels, like beautiful chocolate. Like going back though, there were some boxes that were given during meetings, you know what I mean? Because I was trying to land Rosin Heads, so there was some of those big names that were given the boxes, but they were given the boxes in meetings and they chose to post about them because of how they liked them, you know what I mean? Not because we were going to work together or whatever reason, just because they liked the product, you know what I mean? But, there was, a lot of meetings where, I gave chocolate, right? And there was a couple like when cookies first launched, I had met Yusuf at the time and, I did give them a couple boxes, congratulations, with some labels, congratulations. So there were a few very key boxes, but most of them were just people found me and purchased, right? Like, I can't tell you the amount of, what I consider big name people, like really big rosin people in the community, who have all asked me to do collabs with them. Right. And it's really unfortunate that, the timing was bad for a lot of them. Right. But like some really big people that I would have really loved to work with, just came to me at the wrong time. Do you know what I mean? But, it's really exciting, like having that many of those big names, come to me and wanting to do the collabs. It's pretty exciting, but at the same time, I see, because I've, politely declined those offers, I do see those collabs happening with other people, right? So still pretty cool. It would have been cool if I got to work with them, but You know, I'm not doing anything in legacy right now. You know, I got sick when a lot of them reached out to me. I wasn't able to do it physically. Now that I'm on the mend, I've got to, you know, take my health into consideration and, you know, not be working 24 hours a day anymore. So
that's fair, man. A lot of life is about timing. So what was the next step? Because I mean, I think that Rosin Heads is about to be in the legal Canadian market. So how did that evolve from, you know, getting it into the right hands and having those meetings? What was the next catalyst that happened?
Here's a funny thing, right? Like Rosin Heads was always, you know, as much as it's a legacy brand, the only reason it was in the legacy market is because I couldn't launch it legally first, right? I had to get out there. I had to get the traction. I had to show people what I could do, right? And it's probably the wrong way to go about it in a sense, you know, showing my hand.
I think it's the right way.
I think it's the only way. I think you're a trailblazer. Right? I think you're a trailblazer.
I think so too, but I think
we're going to see more of that.
I want to give people caution that the more you show, the more opportunity is for people to take that before you get to market, right? Which is fine. If you know that you're 10 steps ahead, that's fine, right?
But you had the ability.
On the other hand, if you show up to me with a fancy printed lookbook of pretty chocolates and say, I'm going to do all this, or you show up to me with boxes of chocolates and numbers, it's a very different meeting we're having. And so
of course.
This is the meat and potatoes of what I really want to get into with you, because I truly think that you set a roadmap for how traditional market and legacy individuals who want to make an impact in the legal space, or even new entrants who want to end up in the legal space, will look to follow this roadmap and prove out a concept in the traditional market only because of the ability to prove that test very quickly. Whereas there's nowhere out in the legal space for them to go, yo, just let me show you what I can, like, just give me some space and let me show you what I can do for 3 months. And there's no way.
In the legal space, it takes way too much money.
And so
it takes way too long.
You're basically able to go in, make some noise in the traditional market, and then pull everything off and go, okay, I just proved that I can make noise and it gets heard. Now will you listen to me? And then you have leverage in that meeting. Like, Todd, I think that this is a roadmap that people will follow, because otherwise it's just, you just got a fancy thing on a piece of paper.
No, I completely agree, right? Like, I did the same thing with Canada Chocolate Chair. That's how I sold it, right? I made the chocolate, I put it in front of people, right? I just wanted people to be cautious that if you look at Organigram, for example, 1 year after I went there with my gingerbread truffles, what did they launch? Gingerbread truffles. Cool. They weren't good. They weren't like mine, but whatever, right? It's going to happen. The more you show, the more it's going to happen. But if you know that you're 10 steps ahead, to me,
you gotta have
it's a recipe. Here's the thing. It's a recipe. Okay. Someone takes it, someone modifies it, someone does something close to it. All it does is force me to make a better one. Okay. It forces me to get more unique. It forces me to get more creative. You want to play these games, do you? Okay, let's go. Right. I'm fully ready to play these games with people. Okay. So honestly, and I've been thinking about this a lot, Jameson, because I have some friends who are trying to, do the same thing with flour. Okay. It's a very different story, I think, with flour than it is with edibles, perhaps. Flour, okay, you could be the best black market grower. You could be fucking amazing, okay? You could grow on scale that the LPs are looking for, okay? Getting your cuts in the market is going to be difficult, right? You can bring seeds and try to hunt the same cuts. It's going to be hard. People have ways, whatever. You get your cut in. You're faced with trying to grow in a fucking facility that wasn't built by cannabis people. Like, it's hard. For me, edibles is it's a different story because with edibles, you need something very proprietary, which is your recipes. You know what I mean? But beyond the recipes, the way that I've combined them with the branding, it is really resonating with people. But I've been thinking so much about what the blueprint is, right? Because you guys are convinced that I have one, but really what I think, so what I've been able to do, right, and we've called this out already, I was able to make noise. I was able to prove that people like the chocolates, okay? And I'll be honest with you, every LP told me rosin chocolates, like, you're fucking nuts. You are fucking nuts. Nobody wants to taste the cannabis in their edibles. I've got to remind them, people don't want the taste of distillate in their edibles, okay? Distillate burns. Distillate tastes bad, okay? As much as people want to say distillate makes tasteless edibles, it makes horrible fucking edibles that taste like shit, okay? Most of these people who were surveyed who said they don't want cannabis taste in their edibles have never actually tried cannabis, okay? People that like cannabis, they don't mind the taste of it in their edibles, okay? There's a subsegment that don't want it. There's a big segment, and I heard this in the legacy market since 2016. If I don't taste weed, I don't think I'm getting high. So, like, better make it taste like weed, okay? So, you know, every LP told me, you're fucking nuts. Rosin edibles, like crazy, okay? So I showed them, okay, rosin edibles. People like it. From there, and I think this is where this is what can apply to other product categories. But so how do you get a product on market? You need a sales license for one, right? If it's an edible, you need someone to manufacture that edible. So I started by calling manufacturers. Hi, I've got a chocolate company. Are you taking on white label co-manufacturing? No. What are you trying to do? Oh, I want to make rosin chocolates. No. You know, so one of the biggest companies, one of the biggest co-manufacturers, they ghosted me twice. You know, they don't want to use my rosin input. They don't want me to source rosin from someone else. They want me to use the distillate that they're making, because then they're making money off the distillate. They're making money off the ingredients. They're making money off packaging. They just want to make money off everything, right? So, you know, first step is finding that manufacturer, right? If your manufacturer has a sales license, great. You know, you've got a one-stop shop. You know, they can make the product. They can help you get it to market. The manufacturer that I found didn't have a sales license. Okay, so I potentially have a manufacturing agreement set up, but I don't have a sales license I can work with. I've been around the industry a little while. I made a call. I found a sales license. So, you know, coming at this, I'm not well funded. So the way that I've structured my deal, and you know, I only did this because of what I learned with Canada Chocolatier, and I sold Canada Chocolatier. So, you know, I sold all the recipes, I sold the brand, I sold the trademark, I sold everything. So, you know, leaving, I had to start a whole new brand. Okay, so the way I've structured this deal, I own 100% of the brand still. I pay a set price to the manufacturer per piece. I pay a percentage to the sales license. I'm responsible for marketing. It's a licensing agreement, meaning I own 100% of the brand. I'm responsible for how the brand is marketed. No visual representation of my brand can be done unless I approve it. I own all the recipes. I own everything. So I'm locked in, you know, for a certain period of time in both of these contracts. And, you know, like I said, one, I pay a certain piece, I pay a certain amount per piece to the manufacturer. I pay the sales license percentage. Everything else is mine. You know, basically, like I said, I talked to 27 different LPs with Canada Chocolatier. These guys are going to try to squeeze you. They're going to try to buy the brand from you. If they try to keep you involved, they're going to try to give you, you know, a small percentage. Know how much work you put into it. Value the work you put into it.
Okay.
And, you know,
what would have you done differently?
So here's the thing. I fully think that if I could have seen Canada Chocolatier through, by now it would have been the biggest thing in cannabis. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I couldn't. So now I can see this through. I'm convinced 100%. I know what the customer wants, right? I could be wrong. I'm going to have to course correct eventually. But I have a pretty good idea of what the consumer wants. I think I have a good idea of what they're willing to pay for what I'm about to put forth on market, because it's not cheap by any means what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm certainly not at that. I'm not going to be at that $4 price point like bang. You know what I mean? But the product is on another level, right? So I'm hoping that, you know, consumers see the value in what I'm doing. I'm hoping that they do decide, you know, to spend a little bit extra and, you know, get that quality experience, right?
So looking back on your path to market with Rosin Heads so far, is there anything that you would have gone harder in, done differently, changed, not done? For advice for people following in your footsteps? Because I mean, I think the true thing is, Todd, is like people like me and you and anybody who gets to a certain point of passion around a subject, you realize that, like, listen, I can show you what I'm doing, but are you gonna do it? And if you're really gonna do it, great, let's see it, and then come talk to me. I'll have another guy to talk to that I'm super passionate about. Maybe we'll be working against each other, but the chances that you're going to pick up everything that I'm putting down are so slim that I'm just going to keep throwing it all out there. So I really admire you for that. But,
so,
you know, looking back, what would have you done differently?
Honestly, you know, I don't look back too often. You know what I mean? I learned the lessons real quick, and then I don't think back. But, you know, I wasted a lot of time on certain deals that I wasn't sure about. I really wasn't sure about. I'm much more sure now, much quicker. Do you know what I mean? The second I get that feeling in my gut, I don't ignore it anymore. I do not ignore it the second. You know what I mean? Other than that, like, I mean, honestly, everything could have been done different. But you know what I mean? Looking at, you know, how things went. I don't have a lot of complaints. You know what I mean? I mean, I made a lot of noise in the last year. I mean, what I will say is, I think I'm not, you know, I haven't been making a lot of noise recently, you know, but there's reasons for that, right? I did get really sick. I lost a couple months where, you know, I was really sick, and I'm doing a lot of work. So I don't have a lot of time to get chocolate out there anymore. You know what I mean? And I'll forgo those, you know, those Instagram posts with everybody showing off my chocolates for a little while to get to where I'm going. You know what I mean?
Everybody who matters knows that things are moving in the background for you, and you're the one moving them, and people, your name's in the right people's mouth. But I want to ask, in those meetings that you took with so many different groups about Rosin Heads, what were some of the consistent questions that were being asked? Like, what was the most valuable pieces of information that you came armed with that most satisfied those Chads and Brads that were just looking to feed off you?
No, Rosin Heads was never those meetings, right? Rosin Heads was, you know, some of the bigger legacy groups that have went legal. Rosin Heads, I knew there was maybe 5-6 LPs, you know, or groups, you know, that were working through LPs that I would actually attach the name Rosin Heads to, right? So it was very focused, like very focused.
So same question for Canada Chocolatier. Like, when you were taking those meetings, like, was it, how fast are you selling? Like, what is your volume of sales? What is your depth of product knowledge or product library? How many recipes do you have? Like, what were the questions that you were being asked?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it went back to the recipes, really. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it was, you know, the meetings were, wow, these are really good, but I don't know how you expect me to commercialize this, you know? When the meetings started to get serious, one thing that I wish I was more prepared with, and this is gonna be hilarious when I actually say this, but so I had 2 offers on the table. I had a big portfolio of recipes on paper, right? Which is basically a list of recipes, right? And if you look at the 4-page menu that I had for Canada Chocolatier, you know, there was 30, 40 different products in there, right? When I got to the point that I was about to sign those deals, I didn't have any of the recipes written down. Everything was in my head. Everything was in my head. So the licensing deal that I was working on, they called me and they're like, Todd, like, we need you to sign today. You know, we're going to pull the deal if you don't sign everything. I'm like, listen, I don't have my recipes typed up yet. They're like, we don't care. Give us your notebook. I'm like, okay, maybe I can do that, right? But knowing in the back of my mind, I've got nothing on paper. So when I'm finally at the point where I'm about to sign with, you know, the biggest LP in Canada at that time, you know, by market cap, I spent probably 5 days straight typing all the recipes up in Excel, getting everything ready, getting all my supplier lists, getting everything, pulling it all out of my head, getting it all typed up, put it on a USB drive, drove it out there, gave them that USB drive. They gave me that check. I hyperventilated, right? And now you can see why I hyperventilated. Now you can see why I had imposter syndrome and why I thought they might want their money back, because I basically got the biggest check I've ever seen in my life for 6 days worth of work. Really, not 6 days worth of work, but you know,
lifetime of work.
You know what I mean?
6 days of documentation.
You know what I mean, right? So it was like, holy shit! Did I just pull this off? Like, did I really just pull this off? And here I am, right? This time though, my documentation is on another level, right? Not only do I have everything documented, I've got my specs, I've got my release specs. You know, I do all the NNCPs, I do all the listing forms. I can do all the legal paperwork, right?
Yeah, I think that if you were to examine that company's spending history, that money probably is some of the best allocated capital that they have. So, you know, I don't think that they can really speak to a really good track record of spending. So,
I made them so much money with the products I launched, you know, it washes that check away a million times over, right?
100%. And that's kind of where I'm going with that.
But basically what I'm trying to say, guys, get your ducks in a row, get your documentation done. You never know when an opportunity is going to come, and you don't want to not be prepared for that opportunity. Have everything, be on top of your shit. And I think, you know, it's really funny because when list submissions come up, like for OCS, for other provinces and stuff, right? Every LP that I've ever worked at, we're doing it, you know, the day of, scrambling, you know, oh my God, we don't have the COA. We need this, we need that, scrambling. Okay, I'm 2 weeks ahead of any listing submissions now. You know what I mean? I know listing windows are coming. My applications are done. I'm doing all the paperwork myself. Okay, I'm not submitting it. Obviously, the LP is submitting it, but I'm doing all the paperwork. Okay, I'm doing all the NNCPs. I'm writing all the descriptions, right, that are on the provincial websites. You know, I'm doing this brand is essentially me on paper, right? Right or wrong, that's what I know. Do you know what I mean? I have some, you know, 2 really amazing graphic designers, but other than that, this is like, and you know, if you look at the imagery and stuff, it's my personality on a piece of paper, right? I don't trust anybody. You can see that in the imagery. You know, I'm trying to build a little bit of a cult. You can see that, you know, and the reason for that is because, like, the one thing that I've noticed about Rosin has that I didn't have with Canada Chocolatier is, and I think it goes back to, you know, it being a Rosin hash brand, like a hash driven brand. You know, you look at International, all those guys, Hash Cult, all this stuff. Like, my consumers are a freaking cult, right? And that's why a lot of the brand imagery started to morph towards that, because I could see it in my consumers. I knew that it would resonate with them. And you know what I mean? The brand has just gotten better and better and better. As I realize who I'm dealing with, who my consumers are, I'm just speaking to them more and more and more, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The fact, like, I think you would have had a hard time driving the connection with the solventless community with the Canna Chocolatier, even if Canna Chocolatier was exclusively solventless. I think that's a really cool observation that I didn't see until you said it. But the fact that it's rosin heads and you're leading with the extract, which is the community that so many of us are a part of.
Well, it's hilarious too, right? Because the LPs are just disgusted with me that I have rosin in the name. Like okay, you know Rosin sells 6,000 units a month in Ontario, right? And you've got rosin in your name and you think you're going to sell chocolate? Well, I think so. I really do.
Yeah, the conversations that must be.
It's just not knowing cannabis, not knowing the consumer, you know, like, and you can't tell them any differently. Like, you can't. Well, I read this survey and, you know, we spent fucking $6 million on the segmentation data. Yeah. And you asked Susan, who's never fucking tried cannabis before, if she likes the taste of cannabis in her edibles. Of course she's saying no. Okay. I don't care how much you paid for that research. I've been selling chocolate direct to consumers for 5 years. I think I know the consumer. So don't talk to me about the chocolate consumer.
Yeah. 100%. What's your vision for the brand, Todd?
Yeah, I was going to say, what are some of your goals and like, what are you looking forward to? What's next for the brand? Very loaded question by us.
Yeah, there's so much. So obviously, you know, I wanna make sure that I get the traction that I believe I can in Canada, right? It's gonna take some time. Hoping by end of year, you know, I'll be in, I think, 3 provinces, I would hope. And then, you know, a couple more the following year. I don't know that it makes sense for me to go after all provinces. I really have to do some more market analysis to find out where I really should be playing. But so, you know, it's going to be interesting, right? Because I believe that, you know, I'm going to start by attracting the concentrate consumer. But I'm thinking that word of mouth is going to be so strong that the chocolates are so good that, you know, at 10 milligrams, the taste of rosin isn't going to bug Susan or, you know, Karen or whoever, that I think I'm going to transcend, you know, like I'm going to have that cult following, you know, with the concentrate people, right? I'm going to be, you know, their go-to, I'm hoping, but I'm hoping that the flavors, you know, is going to transcend into, you know, the soccer moms, you know, the other people. I'm hoping to be able to get a lot more consumers than just the concentrate consumer, because there's not a lot of concentrate consumer shopping in the legal market, right? And at 10 milligrams, it's hard for me to bring my legacy market customers with me. You know, sure, they'll support me. They'll buy it once, they'll buy it twice, but how often are you buying something that doesn't get you high? You know, great. They'll buy it once. Todd, we supported you. Thank you. Move on, right? Go back to the legacy market. So, you know, I need to reach those consumers that are able to get high off 10 milligrams. And, you know, having rosin in the names might scare people off, but I actually think that at a certain point, it's more taboo for those people. So it's more exciting for them to get like, oh, I'm having rosin chocolates now, like, you know, sitting with their friend with their, this is rosin chocolates. They show the imagery of the brand. It's a cult. These guys are cults. You know, I actually think, you know, everything that I've done that resonates with the legacy people and with the rosin people is actually going to resonate with the, you know, the rebellious Karens, the rebellious soccer moms, you know what I mean? Because I'm edgy, but I'm not too edgy, you know what I mean? And you combine that edgy with the really high-end, elegant chocolate that tastes like my chocolates do, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think also like
break the rules.
I think also like when you really examine, like say what you will about heady culture. We're eating the best fruit. We're eating we're drinking the best non-alcoholic drinks.
For sure.
We're eating the finest of chocolates, and we're smoking the best of resin. And so those things that we like will bleed into other categories. And if our moniker is the premium of everything, which is truly what it is, then those product categories that we like will clearly bleed into other product categories. And if you're able to become known for that ultra premium offering, it can be cool in one group and cool in another group, and those two groups want nothing to do with each other. And I think it's going to do really well. But I think that you'll have the support of the legacy coming out, like individuals like myself who don't even eat edibles that often will go out and support when those come into the store, because I'm going to go support, the homie, and then you're going to see a continued support through just the quality that is driven through the rosin. And
I think that you'll get customers that don't even know what rosin is, just because they want a high quality chocolate.
Exactly.
Instead of they'll look at it and be like, "Oh, I don't want that chocolate." Because people who like chocolate, like I like chocolate, I'll pay an extra $1 or $2, for a better chocolate bar.
Yeah. No, and I mean
the same thing.
The support of the legacy market, is going to be what's going to get me into the hands of those soccer moms and stuff, right? There needs to be, all that Instagram. There needs to be that word of mouth. There needs to be people saying, not only are these rosin infused chocolates, but my God, they're some of the best chocolates I've ever ate in my life, cannabis or not, right? Because that's where I'm going. And, Jameson, you asked me what the or Graydon, I think you asked me what the long-term plan was. And I kind of danced around that question, because if I'm being completely honest, the long-term plan for me, right, knowing that I didn't start out knowing how to make chocolate, I think the long-term plan for me is going to be very different from anybody else in cannabis, where I actually want to flip everything I've learned making cannabis chocolates and just open a real high-end chocolate shop without cannabis. You know what I mean? To me, that's the story that I want to tell, right? I had no idea how to make chocolate. Okay, I started making edibles. Okay, I sold 2 edible brands into the legal market. Okay, I really learned how to make chocolate. Fuck this excise structure. Fuck all this stuff. Let me just go make that good chocolate now. You know what I mean? That's the
you could do both.
Goal, right? Of course I can do both, right? But it's hilarious to me that's where I want to go, because I had to learn how to make chocolate to make cannabis chocolate. And now that I've really learned how to make chocolate, I just want to make chocolate. It doesn't matter if it has cannabis or not, right?
The plant puts you on a journey, man.
Oh, yeah.
You just got to follow the plant wherever it tells you to go. Yeah. So that's really cool.
So cool.
So, I mean, I do have plans for, other products to come out under the Rosin Hedge brand. Again, probably shouldn't be putting all my cards on the table, but something really cool that I've been thinking about is so the edible category is not that big. You know what I mean? No matter what I do, there's not that much money to be made in the edible space at the current 10 milligrams, right? It's a different story once the milligrams get increased. It's a completely different story. I think, the edible category is going to explode at that time. I think there's going to be a lot of money available to be made at that point in time, and I think a lot more legacy people will be coming in at that point in time. Right now, the margins are so thin, it's ridiculous. So one thing that I've been thinking about doing is, launching products under other categories. Okay, originally I was thinking, hash rosin would be cool. Hash would be cool under the Rosin Hedge brand. Okay, looking at the market, though, there's not a lot of units sold in those categories either. They're getting there, but there's not a lot of units. Okay, there's brands that do that. There's big brands that, make 60% of the rosin in Ontario. There's just not a lot of room to play there. However, there is a lot of room to play in flower still. Flower is the most crowded segment. But I had a good call with someone recently, and they gave me a really, really good idea here is, So, one of my chocolate flavors, right, is a raspberry peanut butter cup that you've obviously had the chance of trying, right, Jameson?
Unbelievable.
So what about curating flower strains that match the chocolates that I'm launching? So, what if I could find a really, really nice lot of, a raspberry strain with the raspberry profile? Buy 20 kilograms of that, launch 5,000, limited edition jars, curated experience, to match the chocolates. And maybe that needs, like, stuff like that needs to be the path forward to offset the money that I'm not making in the edible space, right? Like,
yeah, and the money and time you're investing in building the brand. 100%, I agree.
So there's going to be there's going to be a lot of cool stuff like that coming down the pipeline. It's just I got to get the chocolate launched. I got to get that stabilized, see how it's going. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that I'm going to have to do until I fully believe once we get to maybe 50 milligrams a package, because I don't think they're going to jump from 10 to 100. But if they did jump to 50 milligrams a package, 10 milligrams per piece, 5 per package, I think the edible category is going to be a much, much different place, right? Like OCS, $9 million to selling chocolate a year. And how many players are there? I'm going up against, big players, right? Indiva, people who are willing to make no margin in order to have market share. I don't care what my market share is. If I don't have margin, I don't survive, right? I don't have investors, right? So I'm playing a totally different game than them.
Yeah. Where do you?
That's why I can't play in the $4 piece of chocolate. Do you know what a $4 piece of chocolate ends up being for the LP?
$1.30.
No, so imagine you have $2 once you sell it wholesale. Okay, that piece of chocolate is $2. From that $2, you've got to subtract excise. You've got to subtract your cost of goods. You've got to subtract your packaging. You've got nothing left. There's nothing left.
That's wild.
So, I can't play in a $2 piece of chocolate. My chocolates cost more than $2 to make.
Yeah. No, and I think you're going to see success occupying that spot. I mean, I don't think a lot of people.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to make this point. No other LP is stupid enough to use the ingredients that I use. Okay, and when I don't mean like mentally ill stupid, I'm saying like I know if I change the peanut butter I used, I can save 5 cents. I know if I change the chocolate I used, I can save 8 cents. Okay, I know this. The difference is I won't do it.
And I think that, just continue
for quality.
Ultimately, a lot of the issues, some of the issues that we've run into in Canadian cannabis is a bunch of brands and other places in cannabis is a bunch of new brands coming and claiming ultra premium and then delivering a very subpar product. And so I think that you would be hard pressed to find investment deck that mentioned the word mids, even though all of these companies ended up cultivating large amounts of them.
So I will be completely honest though, right? There are some things you need to do for shelf life that if I didn't need long shelf life, I wouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? But that's not sacrificing quality. That's providing food safety. Do you know what I mean? That's making sure nobody will ever get sick. So you have to make those changes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, and the reason why I say that is, there might be the odd ingredient that I would prefer not to use palm oil, for example. You know what I mean? Two of my recipes have a small amount of palm oil, right? But so does pretty much every cookie that you ever buy. So does, you know, but there's a problem with palm oil, right? It's not sustainable. You know, I typically wouldn't use it, but it's the best thing for the purpose that I'm trying to use it for, right?
Yeah. What other than the cap on the current Canadian cap of 10 milligrams on edibles, what do you think the other major issues in the current licensing system are, as somebody who's been very close to it for many, many, many years?
So, I mean, just the barriers to entry, the cost to entry, right? Like 100%, I would have loved to have been able to do this myself, right? But I don't have the $1 million to stand up a building. I don't have the money to get the security, right? Because nowadays you have to have the building built before you go for a license. It was very different back in the days. You could go in with a hope and a dream, right? Now they want the facility fully built out. They don't want you wasting their time, right? I didn't have the money for the facility. I was trying to go out. I originally wanted to go get the equipment, stand up processing in another LP, and do it that way. But without being able to show significant sales, basically money can be really expensive or money can be really cheap, depending on how well you are, how well positioned you are with your brand. You know what I mean? How far you've gotten along. I wasn't in a position for money to be available for me cheap. So, in order for me to get the $300,000 that I wanted for the equipment, it would have cost me more equity than I wanted to do. So that's when I said, okay, I'm not going to buy my equipment. I'm not going to stand up in somebody else's LP. I'm going to go find a manufacturer. And I think the key was finding a manufacturer that believed in me and believed in what I was doing. So I did that. And then because they didn't have a sales license, I had to go to a sales license. But if I was able to get a manufacturer that had a sales license, I'd be able to save some percentage points there, right? But because I wasn't, I had to do what I had to do to get to market. You know what I mean? And
I think that what you did was admirable. Like, I think that understanding the licensing and leveraging licenses, not always reading the document and going, oh, fuck, I need that license. I don't need that license. I just need to know somebody with that license. And then I need to work, and then I need to make that make sense. And if he doesn't have all the licenses that he needs, well, let's see if we can make this work with one other dude who has that license. And I think that, I work with partners in the legal system. You work with partners in the legal system. I think that it's really something that we need to talk about more for members of our community that are looking to get employed in the legal market and understand, like, hey, you can do some of these things or affect change in ways by just partnering with licensed entities and still getting, your brand in or your products in or whatever it may be. So I think it's important to have these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it was helpful that I had been around the industry, that, I had worked in the industry. I knew enough people that I could pick up the phone and make those calls. And, if I'm being honest, the manufacturer was really one call. I knew who I wanted to work with. I made the call and they wanted to work with me. That relationship really didn't work out. I actually had to scramble and change manufacturers recently, but that's a story for another day. And the sales license, again, was one call, because I had told you before that there was only a few people that I was willing to work with. When, really the first choice that I wanted to work with, they really, they liked what I was doing, but it wasn't the right time. So, I moved on. I made one other call and I got my sales license. Obviously that's not typical, but, if you don't know anybody, it's still very possible, right? You just got to have the right product. And like I said, just be committed, right? Like, and it's funny, right? Because I don't know how many people would actually do what I did and send random emails to random CEOs, but it worked, right? Like,
not a lot of people.
And you know, maybe those little things, maybe those are the keys to the success. Maybe, you know, obviously the product helped, you know, everything else, but it's the persistence, right? It's understanding that you're going to be laughed at, understanding that people are going to make you feel like shit, not believing in yourself, and just picking yourself up and doing it again, right? But like, if you don't know who to talk to, right? Instead of saying, well, I don't know, guess, try, you know what I mean? And I think that's really it. Like, you know, a lot of people say they want it, but then they sit there and say, well, why me? Why, you know, why can't I do that? Why was I able to? Nobody held my hand, right? It's figure it out, you know, and it's funny because you're going to have a lot of days where you figure nothing out. You're going to have a lot of days where you feel like you completely failed, right? The difference is understanding why you failed, trying something different the next day until you get the result that you need, right?
100%.
Todd, I have a few questions about your time at the company that you were at. Did you ever have to hire anyone?
No, I was involved in, you know, helping pick some of the category managers. We were looking at, you know, some people. I read some resumes. I never got the final decision, but you know, a lot of the hires were, you know, group decisions.
Okay. Then maybe my next question would be, you know, what do you think makes, I mean, I'm sure you saw some good examples of what not to do, but what do you think makes like a team work well together in what you do?
I don't work well with others, so I'm probably not the right. Honestly, if I'm being completely
good
honest,
answer.
If I'm being completely honest, the reason why if you know, maybe this might sound like it's ego driven, but like anybody who knows me knows I don't have an ego. But the reason why Rosin Heads is getting to the point that it is because I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to take anybody's opinion, and I don't have. For whatever reason, I wouldn't say that I'm a pushover, but I like to believe that people around me are smarter than me. So I often take their advice. And then, you know, at the end, I realized it was very, very wrong. So like I said, everybody always interfered with the product at the very end. And you got all these people, CEOs, right? Chief innovation. You got all these big shots giving input like, oh, they've got to be smarter than me. I'll take that. Jesus Christ, what do these guys do to the product? Like, holy shit, right? So that's the thing with Rosin Heads. I don't have to work well with others. You know, like I've got freelance graphic designers and, you know, I basically shoot them voice messages on Instagram because I wake up in the morning with all these stupid ideas in my head. I shoot them over voice messages on Instagram and I've got a brand now. No, like we
totally fine answer.
We spent a lot of time recently building the brand guidelines, you know, like that's another thing. Like there's no way to avoid doing the work, right? And you know, the difference between me and a lot of other people might simply be the amount of work that I've done. You know what I mean?
That's just leg lifting, just getting it done.
Yeah. Right. It's hard. It's hard to remain dedicated to something for so long that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Like, yeah, I can make as much money as I want in the legacy market, but you know, when you realize at the end of the day, what are you really chasing? You know, what is a lot of money in the legacy market? And you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The only reason why I'm doing this is the Canada Chocolatier job is half done. I think I have something here. I think I can prove that I can do something big in Canada. Okay, I might not make a lot of money, but I think I can show significant sales. From there, the model's been proven out. Okay, from there, I can rinse and repeat for a third time, and I can start taking this to the US
Yeah.
And landing a licensing deal in every state. And maybe then I'll start making some money. But like, that's the end goal. Yeah. Canada is, let me prove to people that this has legs, because this is where I live.
Yeah.
Right. I can't go to the US, start a black market brand and try to do the same thing unless I want to move my family. Yeah. So, you know, I want to land Canada. There's not a lot of money to be made. I understand that fully. But if I can show revenue, if I can show people really like the brand, if I can show that, here's the thing, there is no brand loyalty in the legal market, right? I think we're starting to see some brand loyalty, but it's the legacy brands from the legacy consumers, right? Because we understand loyalty, okay? So if I can come in, change the narrative, have my chocolate at the price they're going to be at, show significant sales, right? Show that I know the target consumer as well as I think I do, because that's key when you're talking, you know, licensing deals and stuff, right? They want to know how much you actually know your consumer. So if everything that I've done, if the brand speaks to the consumer the way that I think, then I think this is going to be huge, right? And I don't think Canada's not the end goal. Canada's the starting point, right? Canada's what I need to do to prove it. And honestly, the legal market here is kind of fucked. So, you know, there's potential that I'm going to fall flat. If that happens, you know, readjust. I've got all the recipes. I've got all the branding. I'll try going to the States then, but I think it'll be a lot easier because, like I said, money's cheap if you've proven yourself, right? I've got to prove myself, and then I can get the money that I need to invest in what I need to invest in the U.S., right?
Absolutely.
And James, I think we know. There's some people in the U.S. that like what I'm doing, so
they're very much.
I just got to get there, right?
I don't think there's many, you know, companies with somebody driving it with so much passion behind it and so much energy. So I know that this is just the start for sure. So I'm stoked for you, bro. Like, I'm stoked for what you've done. I'm stoked for what.
Yeah, this is super exciting.
And honestly, man, I need to get to a point where I can, you know, I can get some help, right? I want smarter people around me, right? Like, and it's funny because my sales license is like completely hands off, 100%. It's all me, right? Like,
the value in that is, I mean, not the value.
No, like, it's daunting, right? Because like, if this is going to fail, it's going to fail because of me, right? But if it's going to succeed, it's going to succeed because of me, right? Like, it's funny, right? I'm like, hey, I want to sit down with you. I want to show you my marketing plan. Why? Look at what you're doing. It's amazing. Keep going. Right? Like, you know, they're obviously, like, you know, they're there when I need them. Like, these guys are on top of it. They do everything. Like, it's a great relationship, but they're so hands off with the brand and the product. It's like, you know, they're hands-on with everything they need to be hands-on. Sure. But, you know, basically, we got a listing coming up for BC. What are you submitting? Well, do you want to talk about it? No. What are you submitting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what you want when you're come from a place where you come from the exact opposite, where there's 100 people being paid bloated salaries around you, all telling you what they think when they're so far away from the culture that they have no idea. So I truly think that it's awesome that you're in that spot.
Well, and it has to be, right? Because like I said, I don't work well with others, right? Like I do consulting for an LP, and like, I've been pulled aside a few times. Like, you want to be a bit nicer? Yes, I will. I will try. But some of the things that I'm hearing, I don't know how to react. So, you know, I got some good advice the other day. So this is a tactic moving forward. I don't know how to process what I've just heard. Can you give me a few minutes?
That's brilliant.
Instead of being an asshole, hold on, because Anyways, I've got some personality defects apparently.
Everybody's their own unique.
Oh, you're great, Todd. It's awesome.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I think this has been so cool. I think, you've offered some really cool insights. Do you have any other, final pieces of advice for individuals who are looking to follow in your footsteps? Like, I know you've laid down dropped a ton of knowledge, but is there anything else?
I do. So like I said, right, like I've really been thinking about what the roadmap is, what the blueprint is. And the commitment that I'm giving you here, Jameson, is I'm going to put some more thought into it, and I'm going to come back with a much more clear, robust path to market for anybody. Because like I have some friends who are trying to launch some flower brands, and to me it's different for flower because they're going to be going out sourcing flower. Okay, they're going to be working through a sales license that is already selling flower. Okay, so that sales license, why are they going to let you cannibalize their own revenue for a small portion of your revenue? So, I don't know. I can't figure out the path forward for somebody who wants to launch a flower brand if they're outsourcing flower. Okay. If anybody needs advice on how to land an edible brand in the market, DM me on Instagram, find me. I'll tell you everything I know. I can't figure it out for flower people yet. There's got to be a way though, right? Like if you got the coolest brand ever and, it's going to complement their brand rather than cannibalize their brand.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a path, but LPs are never going to give you an opportunity if they think it's going to cut into their bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? So cool. You've got a product that they can make a certain percentage off of, but at the end of the day, they're losing X amount of their own revenue because their products aren't selling because they're buying yours. Right? So I thought about this a lot. I can't figure it out, but for edibles, I got a good idea how to do it.
That's what the community is about. And that's what, being comfortable with knowing that you're pretty passionate about something. You're like, hey, listen, I'm ready to share it. So I agree with you. I think flower's tough. I think, I truly see it like everybody is going to adopt their legacy market companion to pay homage to the old days, and then that will legitimize them and sort of allow the legacy market consumers to willfully transfer into the market. So instead of it being, oh, well, this brand of flower is going to cannibalize our brand, they have to come to the realization that we know nothing about this culture. We've spent millions of dollars hiring and paying a team of marketing people that don't consume the plant, don't come from the culture. And when the fucking clock hits 5 o'clock, they're grabbing cocktails at the local bar and couldn't give a fuck about the cannabis community or Dennis Perrone or a list of other people that goes on and on and on. And so,
so I do see that. I see there is collaboration happening. I see that happening.
That's how we do it. That's how you do it.
It's going to be a while before that becomes the norm, right? You got Clean Young out there. He's bringing some people in. Ghost Drops is bringing people in. There's good stuff happening.
Yeah.
But it's the exception, not the norm, right? It's the exception, not the norm.
Yeah.
And what is like? How many big legacy people are in the legal market right now? Like
not many, if any.
Can I count them on two hands? Like
no, you cannot.
You know what I mean? So something's got to change. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're not well funded, be prepared to get slaughtered, right? Like, and it's funny, right? Because as far as I've made it, there's a long way to go, right? I don't have the marketing budget like, some of the other brands do, right? But so, I'm still really worried that, I put forth a lot of effort.
You're a lot more nimble. You're a lot more hungry.
I got no overhead like these guys, all right? So it's just,
I can go hungry longer than they can go hungry.
95% of the time, like back in my mind, this is going to be the biggest brand in cannabis. Like, I'm certain of it. Maybe not biggest brand in cannabis, but like it's going to be the biggest brand to my consumer segment, right? So the legacy people. And that's all I really want to be. You can't be everything to everybody. That's when you fail. I'm focused on who I'm going after. If other people love it, great. If other people don't love it, I'm probably going out of business, but let's go.
That's awesome, man. Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yep. Thanks for coming on the show, Todd.
No worries.
That was awesome.
Definitely love to have you back on after some time and hear about how getting into these provinces went. But I mean, absolute best of luck. We'll be watching out. Before we go, shameless plugs and where can people find you?
Sorry, shameless plugs. Lots of people have supported me along the way. You want me to name them?
Go for it. This is your show.
Tabitha and Ari, Fritz's Cannabis Company, my first mentors in the space. Found them on Instagram, 2016, making edibles, no traction in market, can't find anyone to buy my products. I don't know anybody. I met Fritz's online, on Instagram, started talking to Ari on Instagram. For whatever reason, he believed in, and he had never met me in person. He had never tried my products in person. He believed in what I was doing, like the visuals of the products, like the branding of what I was doing. He actually he helped me get in my first Green Market. Green Market used to be one of the coolest events ever in Toronto. I wasn't cool enough to get in. I couldn't get in. Ari helped me get in my first Green Market. That set the stage for me to actually get my product in front of people. As soon as I could get my product in front of people, it was pretty much over. It blew up really big. Without Ari and Tabitha from Fritz's Cannabis Company, I would have given up. I was really at the point of giving up. From there, met, Angelina, Blessed Edibles. These are some of the day one homies. I think one of the people most instrumental in getting me out of just the Green Market crowd and in front of the Rosin consumers. Back then, he was going by Pharaoh Collective, Hasho, Mike.
El Padrino.
Basically, he got me in front. And it's really funny. So you want to talk about targeting people. You want to talk about getting product in front of the right people at the right time. His logo at the time was tie-dye, like Pharaoh. It was on all his rosin jars and stuff. I had some pyramid molds at the time. I did some tie-dye pyramids. I sent him the photo. I think these would go really good with your brand. Can we have a talk? He's like, yeah, come meet me. I'll never forget the first time I met him. I brought him the chocolate. He ate them in his car. I want them. Like, let's do a collab. I want to launch them. Cool. He smoked the biggest blunt with me that I remember driving home and having to stop. I was fucking destroyed. But he was instrumental in getting me in front of, the rosin consumers, getting me in front of, some of the real people who were doing, big legacy things in Toronto. He legitimized me in a sense, beyond the Green Market crowd, right? From there, who else? I'm missing a million people, but like those guys were some of the first people that I met in the industry, and some of the people that were really, really instrumental in kind of legitimizing what I was doing. You know what I mean? Because there was new edible companies popping up every week. You know what I mean? And, nobody knew what was what, right? Those guys really legitimized me. I'm going to miss everybody after 2017, to be honest. But, those people really helped set the stage for, success.
That's awesome.
Where can people get a hold of you, man? If people want to get a hold of you, Todd, where can people reach you?
Instagram.
What's your Instagram?
Rosin Heads. Or you can email me info@rosinheads.ca. Just don't spam me, please. No, I don't care. Yeah, so sorry to everybody that I forgot. I know there was a lot more people very instrumental in making. So let me give a shout to the designers for Rosin Heads and Adrian from Tokyo Smoke. Started helping me do design back in Canada Chocolatier days. Helped with all the initial legacy market Rosin Head stuff. Came up with the logo. There's another guy who's helping me now, Pat Walton. He's helping me with some of the new designs, some of the brand guidelines. Some of the more advanced stuff that needs compliance checks on as well. He's helping me with that. Yeah, I mean, Joe Keogh, everybody knows Joe's been very instrumental in a lot of stuff recently. And let me just take a minute to talk about Joe. Joe is one of the most kindest individuals I've ever met. He helps everybody that asks and is very appreciative.
Well, that's awesome, man. Todd, we appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Thanks for coming on the show, Todd.
Yeah,
that was a great Roots to Suits story, by the way.
Yeah,
that was perfect.
I loved it, and that's what this show is about. So we'll definitely look to watch out for Rosin Heads and support you, and when you drop in the provinces, and everybody watch, it's coming. And
so, yeah, production's supposed to start next week. So it'll happen soon.
Awesome.
Oh yeah,
we'll be watching. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Todd, you have yourself an awesome day. Cheers, brother.
Thanks.